On a perfect winter day, the Swiss Alps gleam in the sunlight, inviting visitors from all over the world. But it's a dangerous beauty, a beauty that can lure you to your death, a beauty that hides weather that can turn on a dime, conditions that are explosive. An avalanche swallows a skier and sets off a frantic rescue. This time, it's too late, and another life is lost. In Switzerland alone, more than 300 people have died in avalanches in the last 12 years. But the Swiss are working hard to change that. 5-year-old Yukon is one of the world's best avalanche rescue dogs. His owner, Peter Shreer, simulates a rescue twice a week to keep him in top form. Yukon and Peter are always focused on the next avalanche, the next fight to save a human life. They practice with objects because Yukon only needs scent to find a victim. Each drill is realistic and tough, but Peter carefully avoids putting too much stress on his canine partner.
The training has to be done so that the dog can have fun. Like in a game. I'll bury a backpack, a glove, anything. That's why I don't train him more than twice a week. He has to have fun.
The Alps have always had an element of extreme danger. For centuries in the St. Bernard Pass, between Switzerland and Italy, travelers lost in snowstorms or buried by avalanches were rescued by dogs from the nearby monastery. But the St. Bernard was mixed with other breeds and became too large, too heavy, too long-haired to work in deep snow. The job has gone to lighter dogs like Yukon, an American-Canadian white shepherd. At 60 pounds, he's portable. That's important for their work.
Yukon is in good physical condition. He has to keep his energy for the actual search. It can last up to an hour, and that's very hard.
In the 4 years Yukon and Peter have worked together, they've been to 14 avalanche rescues. The race to save avalanche victims is seldom successful. Many of the snowboarders or skiers have gone off the trails into unstable snow. They may cause an avalanche, or it may be spontaneous. Either way, it's difficult and dangerous to find someone on an unmarked trail. Avalanche work isn't the only part of Yukon and Peter's day.
Although we are responsible for the safety of the skiers on the main trails by making sure the trails are properly marked and delineated, our main goal is to save the victims of accidents. Each year in the Davos area there are up to 1,500 accidents, and our purpose is to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. It's quite a challenging activity.
Yukon lives at Peter's Davos home in the valley below. The dog's a perfect companion for a lone mountaineer.
The relationship I have with my dog is very close. On the job, Yukon is like the best working partner. Out of the job, I can say he's a very, very good friend. We're always together, day and night. And if I go on holidays and I have to give him away for a week or so, I really don't like it. I have human friends, but he's the closest friend I've got.
Peter took Yukon home to be a pet. He chose him because he was the biggest pup in his litter, and Yukon soon surprised Peter with other qualities.
When Yukon was very young, I noticed that he had a very good nose. That's why I decided it would be good to train him as an avalanche dog.
The training for finding buried scents in the snow paid off. Now Yukon and Peter have their own beat, about 4 square miles, including several mountains, but they don't work alone. They're part of a sophisticated rescue network guided by the Swiss Federal Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research. It studies the weather and pinpoints dangerous areas where the snow is ready to crash down. Rather than wait for an avalanche to happen, researchers beat nature to avoid fatal surprises later on. Peter sets up a dynamite charge to cause an avalanche. It's good training for Yukon, who tenses as he watches from a distance. Yukon still hates the sound of the blasting. He used to hate the sound of helicopters, too. Exposure to the noise helped him overcome that fear, and now, when it's necessary, Yukon travels in the rescue helicopter. Everything Yukon knows was put to the test 3 years ago. In December 1998, people in the resorts above Davos were enjoying another day of great skiing. No one knew of the trouble high up on the mountains. Lucas Lohner had snowboarded all morning before he remembered he might be late for an appointment in town. Then Lucas made a dangerous mistake. He took a shortcut. Immediately, he was off the marked trail. Without knowing it, he had ventured into avalanche territory. Lucas didn't even hear it coming down the mountain. Suddenly, it felt as if the ground had been pulled up from under his feet. Lucas was sliding down the mountain on a huge boulder of snow. Only then did he realize this was an avalanche, and he was in it. Lucas remained conscious as he was pinned face down under almost 5 feet of snow. All that he could hear was his heart beating. Other skiers had seen Lucas go under, but 15 long minutes went by before the alert reached Peter and Yukon, and every additional minute that passed counted against the survival of Lucas. Peter knew only too well how most avalanche victims die of asphyxiation or hypothermia. After 30 minutes, chances of finding a victim alive go down to just 30%. And as Yukon and Peter hit the ground, those 30 minutes were already gone.
When I was searching, all kinds of thoughts went through my head. Perhaps the mountain has claimed another life. Perhaps he has suffocated and died. Perhaps he's frozen to death. There's a big chance we won't find him alive. But then again, hopefully, perhaps he is still alive.
Yukon sensed the urgency. Back and forth he went, sniffing. This time it wasn't for a backpack or a hidden mitt. This was for real. 35 minutes. 40 minutes. 45 minutes. 46 minutes. 47. And then Yukon finally seemed to detect a scent under the snow. They had found Lucas, but almost 50 minutes had passed since the avalanche had buried Lucas. Peter had no illusions. Survival chances were low. But under almost 5 feet of snow, Lucas Lohner was not only alive, but amazingly, he was still conscious. He could hear Peter shoveling above him. Then, a fantastic feeling for an avalanche victim. A wet nose on his face. Yukon and Peter had helped Lucas beat the odds.
I was happy and proud at the idea that Yukon had saved someone's life. It gave me a good feeling.
35 years of search and rescue missions behind him, but Peter never had had such a moment. Yukon was a hero in the Swiss press, and Peter was his beaming partner.
Yukon.
But no one was happier than Lucas, the grateful survivor who still visits Yukon.
I love this, sweetheart.
For Peter, Yukon had always been a remarkable dog, worthy of his long years of training. But when he saved Lucas, Yukon became one of the few dogs in the world ever to dig out a living avalanche victim. In the rolling hills of Kent, just 60 miles southeast of London, life appears unchanged. The clip-clop of a rider, the pack milling about the horses, waiting for the hunt. The wildlife on the run. Traditional tea is served, though this is anything but a traditional fox hunt. Nick Wheeler, the master of the hunt, is responsible for the restless hounds, all 42 of them.
All the hounds get excited on meet days. It's their playtime. That's what they live for, is going hunting. So it's a big deal going off hunting. They really enjoy it.
Biggles is one of Nick's favorite dogs.
Well, obviously you have a soft spot for it, for a dog who's done very well.
Biggles is a purebred, 100 pounds of Bloodhound. And over 40 heavy hounds pursued by sharp-hooved horses and their riders is a problem. Foxes and other wildlife don't avoid fields planted with crops. But this hunt with rather unusual prey satisfies the farmer.
Come and shake hands. This is the landowner whose land we're going over. Very kind chap. Any dog that you hunt with, you have a special bond with. You have to be able to read the hound, to actually see when he's hunting, when he's lost the scent, and when he's casting around, and then to actually look at him and see when he picks up the scent. So any hunting dog you tend to have a bond with.
The call to the hunt is what the dogs and the hunters love most. They'll brave anything the English weather throws at them. Bloodhounds sniffing in this countryside have been a tradition since Norman times. Also known as St. Hubert's hounds, the dogs arrived with William the Conqueror, who landed just down the road. Since then, a bloodhound is often referred to as a dog following a nose.
The bloodhounds have been bred for centuries for their sense of smell. That's what they're bred for. They are just absolutely fantastic. Scenting ability of the bloodhound is unbelievable. They just live for hunting. If they don't hunt, they find they've got no purpose in life. They entirely live for hunting.
These dogs train to hunt something much different than traditional foxes. But Biggles is still the leader of the pack and the award winner used for breeding. So Biggles stands out from the pack when it comes to treatment.
Biggles, being a purebred, has to be treated slightly different to the pack hounds. His constitution is slightly more delicate.
Dinner is not terribly elegant when the pack gets at it, but it's a system that Nick finds works and is necessary.
Come on, Dumpy. Good girl.
The slow eaters begin. Then Nick calls their names in order of eating speed.
Seaweed, Sunbeam, Flora, Tootsie, Roundtree, Softy, Chelsea.
Equality is reinstated as Biggles exercises with the pack. But bedtime is different for him. Biggles gets to go inside the house.
Stay.
Although he's a better sniffer than Pet.
They're great fun to have. The biggest problem is they are big in the house. They take up at least a two-seater settee. Sit down. We have ways and means. Also, they slobber, and that just goes all over the ceiling. It really is just horrendous. Their main thing in life is hunting. Teaching them to hunt is not a problem. Teaching them not to hunt is the biggest problem. They naturally will hunt. They will hunt anything.
Biggles! Biggles! Biggles!
So when you take them out for a walk in the park, if you let them off the lead, they will be straight off after the nearest jogger.
And that's just what these hounds and hunters are after. Organized hunts for people, called drag hunting, makes sense. After all, dogs like Biggles have historically tracked humans, although usually criminals, not joggers. Today, Nick's pack no longer chases a frightened animal. In this popular British sport, they're after a runner.
The walker leaves an article of clothing at the start so that he actually knows that that is the scent he's got to follow. They hunt from flakes of skin that fall off from the body when you're walking along, perspiration, or even crushed vegetation where the person has walked. So we just cannot imagine what they are smelling, and some people reckon that they can smell one piece of dandruff that might have fallen off a human.
Today, the human is Chris Wheeler, Nick's brother.
It's a really rewarding day out, to be able to go around the countryside, to run over all this wonderful land on a day like this. Absolutely fantastic. And then to be able to lay the lines so that the hounds hunt well and so the riders get a good buzz out of charging across the countryside. It's really, really pleasant. And then go into tea, and one or two might buy me a beer if I'm lucky. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, really good fun.
Hunts like this please everyone. The animal rights advocates who want to save the foxes, the farmer, the jogger, the hunters, and of course, Biggles and the hounds who get to use their well-bred noses.
Good boys, eh? Good boys.
If they don't work, they just become totally depressed.
Well done, everybody.
The pleasure for them is actually the hunting, but the reward is actually finding the person at the end, and all they require is a pat and a well done, and that's all they want. They're quite happy with that.
Drag hunting involving joggers has been around for a while, but in the 21st century, it may become the only way to hunt, and Biggles and the pack will be right there, ready to put their noses to work to maintain the great tradition of the British hunt. The Dells, one of the oldest resort areas in Wisconsin. Every summer, 500,000 tourists flock here to admire the natural rock formations along the Wisconsin River. And here comes Kodak, a 4-year-old German Shepherd. He's the newest employee of the Dells Boat Company. Kodak is training for his job of wowing tourists. At one stop along the boat tour, visitors get to glimpse an unusual sight overhead. Way up in the treetops, it's the jumping dogs of Stand Rock. The dogs are part of tradition at this rock formation made famous by photographer H.H. Bennett. Bennett was a photographer who worked almost exclusively in the Dells from the mid-1800s. When tourists saw the picture of his son jumping the chasm at Stand Rock, they soon arrived here in steamboats and tried the rock out for themselves. Until later, when insurance companies put an end to that sort of thing. Since the 1940s, dogs have been the ones doing the jumping at Stand Rock. The dogs keep the tourists coming, and tourism keeps the local economy humming. The gap is only 5 feet wide, but the 50-foot drop makes this jump a feat for daredevils. And some dogs are more daring than others.
It's only 50 feet. It's only 50 feet down there.
Kodak's name reflects the photographic history of the Dells, but he's been training for only 3 months, He can't make the famous leap yet. Kodak still needs to work on his agility with trainer Peter Williams.
Walking through a ladder, maybe over a board that's just a couple feet in the air on a cement block. And the reason for that is, again, to build his confidence, because they have difficulty setting their hind legs down where they need to. And if they're challenged to go across the board and they begin to accomplish that and become comfortable with it, it builds their confidence. And that's what we want for Stand Rock.
Every day, Peter takes Kodak to Stand Rock to give him a feel for the place. Jumping a 5-foot gap in practice is one thing, but doing it over a 5-story drop requires, well, a leap of faith.
Oh, he'll make it. He's a jumper. I can tell it. It's in his bones. He's a wild and crazy guy, and he runs around, and he's got tons of energy, and he seems to be doing very well out at Stand Rock. He's at the point now where I know that he can physically perform the jump. It's a matter of getting his attitude and his mind to the point where he's comfortable out here.
It's a new day, and Peter and Kodak head down to Stand Rock. Another boatload of tourists pulls in, and Peter's radio crackles to announce their arrival.
TBT Kennel, the Juliet is at the dock.
They're expecting a show. Will Kodak let them down? No way. He makes the leap, and Kodak joins the historic ranks of the jumping dogs of Stand Rock.